problem. Okay.
I
What's your
have a
problem?
lot of information.
Okay.
A lot. I have read about the Socratic Method.
Okay.
There's a lot of information and it's great. But I don't know how to start.
Okay. So let's take a look. Okay, so if we look at your literature review here in Google Drive, let's go ahead and look at that. Let's thinking about these topics, these main topics here. Can you think of 2 to 4 main or subtopics that you can talk about? Let's brainstorm and come up with some subtopics that relate to this idea of questioning, asking questions in a classroom.
Okay.
So what do you think? What are some subtopics?
Well, I think type of questions.
Okay, what else?
The Socratic Method.
What else?
I'm stuck.
So we have types of questions, Socratic Method.
I have a thesis.
Okay, what's your thesis statement?
No.
Oh.
No. I
oh, a thesis? Okay.
From another person. But I think it's she. She only talks about the method by itself, the Socratic method.
Okay.
And has like the uses. I like that. The use of the method, using English language teaching.
Okay, so another way to do it, if you want, is just use these 2 methods, or these 2 sections, and come up with some subsections. So, for either one of these. So if you think these are the only 2 main subsections, let's look at types of questions. Are there categories there that...
In the one that you sent me, it's very useful. I don't know where. Yeah, it was like how the teacher use the questions.
Well, let's look at first question types. So how would you divide up the types of questions? I mean, how do you want to organize or present the types of questions?
I need
like categories.
I need the type of question.
Right. I'm looking first in the first one. Types of questions.
Okay.
Do you have any classifications yet? Like how you classify?
No.
Okay. So here, think first, type 1, type 2, type 3, whatever, and decide how you want to present these. So it needs to be in some sort of logical organization. So for example, you might start with the most basic to the most complex type of questions, or the easiest type of questions to the most difficult, right? So you have types of questions, so you have to talk about those. Now, what about the Socratic method?
Critical thinking.
So critical thinking through questioning. So everything is through, Socratic method or critical questioning. Okay, what else?
The use in English language teaching.
Do you have information?
Yeah.
So, but is critical thinking part of that discussion?
According to what I've read, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna write this off to the side. So, EFL classroom. Okay, what else?
Till now, is what I have.
Okay.
Teacher, I can start the lit review with like a quote or something like that.
Yeah, in the
Like-
introduction you can include a hook. Yeah. But I wouldn't worry too much right now with the introduction. We can add the introduction later on.
Okay.
I'm looking for a book. Here it is. Now this is very much related to the Socratic Method. It's called the Padhai program. Okay. And part of the Padhai program is they call it the Padhai Seminar. Now the Padhai Seminar is very much like the Socratic Method. So you might have a section or at least mention something about the Padhai. The Padhai Seminar. Because it's very much like the Socratic approach.
Mhm.
And if I think you can find some information online if you do a search. Padhai classroom. Paidei.
How do you pronounce it?
Padhai. Padhai.
Padhai?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The Padhai classroom, and they talk a lot about the seminar, and the benefits of the seminar, and it's related to the Socratic Method, but it's a little bit different. They have kind of a protocol on how to implement this. So this might be something else that you can include, and there might be other types of Socratic methods or maybe variations, right, that you can talk about. So you might talk about Socrates, very general, like Socrates and who he was, a philosopher, and
Yeah, this Plato. I think they had like a kind of conversation with Socrates.
Uh-huh.
How do you say in English Socrates?
Socrates.
Socrates
Mm-hmm.
and Plato.
And Plato.
Plato. Okay.
Yeah.
And this
Mm-hmm.
Socrates? Yeah. Ask questions to him.
Exactly. Right. So you can talk a little bit about that, right? I mean, it's not a lot, but you might say, okay, Socrates is known for questioning and such. But then start talking about, you could talk about the Padhai.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk about, there's another term, essential questions.
Yes.
And that's from Wiggins and McTighe. So Wiggins and McTighe, this book, Understanding by Design. Okay, they have this. They talk about essential questions, and these are they go into what is an essential question, and I know you can find information online for that. But so essential questions, the Padhai Seminar. You might talk, about those here someplace, or you decide if you want a main topics or subtopic of Socratic Method questioning.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And how I'm going to link that with the study.
Okay, so the research questions is really to look at questioning, right? How teachers are questioning. So maybe at the end of your theory, you have a section on the implementation of applying questions,
Okay.
right? So these would all be kind of question types, right? Essential questions might be part of question types. Okay. The Padhai Seminar might be kind of like the implementation. So think of it like this: the types, question types,
Okay.
Then the implementation, how you actually apply it to the teachers, how the teachers might apply the questions.
Okay.
So that would be kind of the two main areas, and then within each one of those you could have subheadings for the specifics, right? And if you could find, do you have literature, have you found information about how to apply questions, like how teachers can apply those questions, or?
No, I focus more on the Socratic.
Okay,
Mhm.
so maybe find just a few articles on how to implement the questions,
Okay.
right? And I think you could find information on that, like if you start first with yes/no questions that lead into more,
Yes.
right?
I saw that somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, no questions. Also the essential questions.
Exactly. So that's the thing. You talk about the types, and then you talk about how do teachers actually, like the discourse. It would be kind of like the discourse of questioning discourse.
So first the types,
Mhm.
right? Then implementation can be another heading.
Right. It could be types. The first section, the types. The second section might be something related to Socratic Method, the seminar, Padhai Seminar, and then at the end something very specific to language teachers, how they implement and order the discourse behind questions, like how they decide, which questions to ask, when, if you can find information about that, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I think you should have enough information there between what we're talking about here. I just want to make sure you can find information from the teachers, like how they apply the questions. So just let me know if you can't find that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Trying to think if I have it here.
For example, in the file that you sent me,
Uh-huh.
it says like teacher usually asks questions for several purposes. To test their students' previous knowledge, recall and recognize something, to think and reason
Okay.
about something, elicit something from their students, to promote initiative and originality, stimulate the interest and effort on the part of their students to focus attention on a particular issue,
Okay.
to develop an active approach to learning, and to keep children mentally alert.
See? That could be like the last section. The purpose of questioning. What's the purpose of questioning? Why?
So I'm not going to start with that, right?
I don't think so. I would start with the types first, question types, then talk about some things that we're talking about here, Socratic Method, and then finish with the most important being the purpose of asking questions.
So I don't need to start like teachers use questions in the classroom, blah, blah, blah. I can start directly with type of questions, and then we can focus on the introduction.
Yeah, and you want to see. Yeah. Yeah, because, right. So the very first section, go right into types of questions.
Okay.
Now, when you start the next section after the types of questions, you want to transition a little bit, right? Transition into the next section, whether it's Socratic Method or the Padhai Seminar, whatever, and then lead into more practical. So you're kind of moving from the theoretical also to the practical at the end. Yeah. So, and then you have your research questions at the very end of your literature review that then links what you want to research.
Okay.
So in your thesis statement is going to relate to the purpose like what you just mentioned about the purpose of why teachers ask certain types of questions. But everything else is going to lead in up to that.
Okay.
Right?
So I need
Because,
first all these things.
right. It's think of it very simply like everything leads up to the why. Why ask questions, right? So why? All right. So first we need to know what. So what are the questions? What types? So what? Two might be how. And the third section, why? See what I mean?
Yeah.
So what, how, and why. Those are your three sections for questions.
I need to write that.
Everything we're recording, all of
yes,
this.
yeah.
So you'll have access to everything that we're talking about today.
Okay.
But this is one option. Talk about the what, then the how, and then the why.
Okay.
In your thesis statement, you're going to include the why. Everything leads up to the why.
Okay.
But to understand why, we need to know how. To understand how, we need to know what, right? We need to know what it is. So that's the logic, that's the flow to make it, I think, with an attempt to make it coherent, right? So that's one option.
Okay. Can
Come on,
I
guys.
take a picture to that?
Absolutely. It's not very pretty, but you're more than welcome to take a picture of it. And don't think you need to talk about everything, because you may have some sections where you have tons of information. So be selective. Talk about only the most important and the most current information. Right?
I need to start with this right now.
Yeah, so go ahead and start uploading your literature review to Google Drive, and we'll be looking at that each week, so I can give you feedback about how you're organizing your work. Go ahead and add the main topics, the main headings. Okay, kind of an outline. Go ahead and add your research questions and your thesis statement, and then start developing the rest. That way, when I look at it, I can see, okay, these are your research questions, and I understand kind of where you want to take your literature review. And when you're developing this, always refer back to this. Keep looking at your research questions as you're writing your literature review. Always look back every day when you start contributing to this. Look at your thesis statement. So remind yourself, what's the main idea of my essay, so that you don't kind of drift off to something else.
But once that I have all this, I'm going to develop my thesis statement.
I would prefer that you develop your thesis statement now, and then keep referring back to it as you develop. Now, if you feel that you need to modify something, you can modify it. But I think it's a good exercise to go ahead and come up with something that you think is the main idea, then start developing, constantly going back. And if you at some point feel, no, I really need to talk about this, and this is going to change a little bit my thesis statement, that's fine. Go back to your thesis statement and make those changes.
Like, why the teachers use questions?
Well, but remember, the thesis statement answers.
Okay, so it cannot
It
be a
answers.
question.
No, the thesis statement answers your research questions.
Okay.
It's the answer. It's one sentence, very general, but it's the answer to your research questions.
Okay.
So the answer to your research questions is going to be something related to purposeful questioning, like a certain, mentioning how you're going to be asking questions in a purposeful way. And in that purpose, you may mention, critical thinking, some of the things you mentioned in that sentence you just mentioned earlier. Okay, you're going to be talking more deeply about those things. That's what you can include in your thesis. See, something like questioning students allows them to think in this way, or speak or interact.
But it has to be only one sentence.
The thesis statement.
The thesis statement.
Right, but in your introduction, you're going to be talking more about
Okay.
you're building up to the thesis. So it's not, it's not all by itself. Right now, it's by itself because we're going to do the introduction later.
Mm.
But the introduction is all building up to the thesis. It's all about the thesis statement. But the last sentence should be very clear about one sentence about a claim, an idea, saying, okay, this is, what you are proposing.
Okay. So is not the first line, right? It's the last.
It's the last line of your introduction. The first line would be like the hook, right?
Okay.
And then everything else would be like the background or the context, and then you lead up to this idea,
like
the thesis statement.
Like teachers use questioning to develop critical thinking.
Something along those lines.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's what you want to research. You're going to be looking at how they form questions to think critically or whatever other purpose it is to ask those types of questions.
Mm-hmm.
See?
I will try to start like uploading things.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and start uploading this week, and for our next tutoring session, we'll look directly in here, and I'll make suggestions, and we'll talk about it.
Excellent.
Alrighty. Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Teacher, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In Spanish.
All right.
¿Por qué el último semestre no lo dejan solo para tesis y ya?
¿Por qué?
O sea, porque tenemos como las otras materias.
Sí.
Y por ejemplo, yo que estoy en educación básica,
Sí.
pues por ejemplo, estamos, ni siquiera me acuerdo cómo se llama, bueno, es como el rol del maestro de enseñanza del inglés en la educación básica o algo así. No me acuerdo cuál es el nombre, solo sé que es la optativa de. Pero tiene todo que ver con lo del NEPI, todo el programa para el Restart. Que desconozco completamente porque yo no trabajo en Restart. Y entonces, por ejemplo, ya tenemos para el martes un trabajo que es hacer un ensayo acerca de eso, de 800 palabras. Y entonces digo, como que eso quita tiempo a esto, lo de la tesis. ¿Sí me explico?
Sí. Bueno, pues sí, ahorita, pues por este plan de estudios, está incluido, de hecho, son menos, ¿verdad? Son menos materias como de antes, ¿verdad? Vamos a ver el mapa de. Sí, entonces aquí tienes la optativa, optativa, seminario y prácticas profesionales son 3.
4. Son 2
Ah, ok.
Llevamos dos materias de optativa.
¿Cuál 2?
Una es de syllabus design. Otra vez.
Hay 2 materias ¿tienes optativa C o D?
C y D.
C y D. Ah, ok.
No, la
C
PIR y la
ok, C y D, ya. Ok. Bueno, pues la idea aquí es programar pues menos, ¿verdad? Menos materias, con la idea que de seminario, ¿verdad? Y con las horas también son menos horas, son menos créditos, de hecho, de todo, menos del primer semestre. Son 43 créditos. 26 horas son casi lo menos de 2 otros, ¿verdad? Pero bueno, es por eso sí es importante programar bien tu tiempo. Tienes, en este caso, con esta materia, un poco flexibilidad en el sentido de tienes 8 horas para esta materia, más el tiempo que lleva como cualquier curso fuera de clase. Entonces aquí nada más como estamos juntándonos usualmente media hora, pues también hay otro tiempo, ¿verdad? Entonces hay tiempo para hacer todo eso, pero sí es importante programar bien su tiempo con los compromisos que tienes, con todo lo que tenemos aquí, viendo todas las fechas que tenemos ya establecido para, para terminar con cada parte, para programar bien tu tiempo, ¿verdad?
Ay,
Y,
aparte todos trabajamos.
y si lo ves así como la manera que estamos calificando, por ejemplo, el Lit Review sí es importante que termines porque es parte de tu calificación. Pero si tú ves el peso del puntaje, el primer draft, es decir, en mayo, el 23 creo, el 23 de mayo, pesa más como un producto de todo de las partes individuales. Es decir, sí es importante que termines el tiempo, también para seguir con el estudio, ¿verdad? Pero sí pesa menos cada parte antes. Con esta idea, si vas un poco para atrás, pues no pegue tanto de la calificación. Sí pega, pero no tanto. Sí.
Entonces aún tengo tiempo de ponerme a hacer lo del Lit Review.
Ajá.
Sí, es hasta el 28 de febrero.
Sí, es el 28 de febrero. Y no me acuerdo cuántos puntos, pero los puntos son un poco menos, no es así bien, bien. Pero sí es importante que termines, pero no afecte tanto. Sí, sí, ¿no? ¿Verdad? Y yo voy a revisarlo dando feedback es como si fuera el final.
Okay.
Es decir, cheques cambie todo para que tú ves más o menos qué son las expectativas de los enseñadores. Yo voy a calificar si yo fui un enseñador de esta manera para que tú tienes la idea, ok, pues tiene que estar así, para que no ves así de sí, para que no hay sorpresas ya cuando ellos están evaluando. Claro que cada quien es diferente, evalúa diferente, pero sí yo voy a dar así bien, así mucho feedback así en cada parte para que tratando a prepararse así para el final.
Al final.
Así es.
Qué miedo.
Sí, pero échale ganas, haga lo que puedes, ¿verdad? Y programar bien todos tus compromisos, así afuera también de la escuela, así para decir, tengo que dedicarme X horas o X, no sé, 1 hora, 2 horas diarios o no sé, pero tú programa tu tiempo así. Y si tú haces eso, no vas a tener problemas, así va a ser así, todo bien. Pero si vas para atrás, sí es muy difícil recuperar este tiempo. Como hemos hablado también, en los 2 3 semanas de data collection, hay muchas cosas que no dependen de ti. Tú dependes en la disponibilidad de los participantes, las escuelas, y a veces pasan y dicen, no, pues venga, no sé, el próximo lunes a mi clase, y tú llegas y algo pasa, no sé, para decir, pueden decir, no, pues hoy hubo una junta con los papás y hoy no vamos a tener clase. Entonces, pasa y eso es fuera de tu control.
¿Verdad? Es la semana es la semana de Semana Santa, vacaciones.
Bueno, eso es hasta ahí, ¿verdad? Sí. Entonces, tú programas, cuando ya estamos un poco más cerca de este tiempo, vamos a hablar más de eso, así. Programas cada día, qué vas a hacer cada día. Poniendo también como un tipo colchón de tiempo precisamente para porque as the expression goes, stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
And there's things that are outside your control. So plan for that. Plan for things to go wrong,
Okay.
so that you are sure that you have enough time to get what you need done. I always try to tell my students we have 3 weeks of data collection, try to get it done in 2 weeks. So if you still need one more interview or apply one more questionnaire, you still have another week to do that. Okay, to always try to plan a little bit ahead,
Okay.
But just hang in there, you can get it all done. And we've got time now to start. Now's the time to start writing. See, if you haven't, we've talked about more or less the organization. Start it, and we'll talk about it each week. All right. And if I feel like we need to make some changes, or you have doubts about the organization, we work those out each week. But you need to try to give me a little bit each week, so that I can see what direction you're taking, so that at the end, on February 28th, it's pretty close to where it needs to be. So otherwise, if you wait and give me everything on the 28th, and I say, well, I changed this, all this stuff, then it's going to be more work for you when you need to now focus on data collection. All right, so so just hang in there. You can do it. Just échale ganas y sí. All right, Luz.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. See you later.
See you later.